Well, hello and welcome back to the Handstandcast with me, Emmet Lewis, and my co-host Mikael Christiansen. Before we get started, I have to say, damn it, I love our intro music.
Yeah,
Before we get into it, it's fucking awesome.
could
Uh,
definitely be a Mega Man stage. That's exactly what I wanted anyway.
yeah, no, every time I hear it, I play it sometimes just for myself when I'm at home. I'm just like, I need to pick me up when I'm working, hit the music. Yeah. Anyway, let's start the episode.
But
How's things going, Mikael?
yes, yeah, not too bad. I just got into artistic residency again with my circus group, Right Way Down Company, and we are, like as I've talked about before, endlessly creating the show called Vald, which will hopefully premiere in February, depending on how all kinds of COVID things go. But as of now, we are basically confining ourselves in a space here in Sweden, uh, not meeting almost anyone, since we just want to make sure that we stay COVID free, and can actually get our work done without any implications from that. So yeah, it's gonna be like we just did kind of the prep days now, setting all the equipment up, a million billion canes. We got our new canes that are really fucking nice. I tried them today, and the space is set up, and we're basically ready to just smash ourselves, like basically like immerse ourselves properly into the artistic process. And we have a light
Nice.
designer coming in in about a week, and like our musician is here. So like this is when we dig deep and really get into the chunkiness of it.
Awesome,
How
awesome.
about you, Emmet Lewis?
I am back in lockdown in Dublin as usual. So we're back to March the 952. We're also, I suppose, it's the eve of the American presidential election. So have that bit of comedy slash, I don't know, comedy horror. Is there a genre of that going on at the moment? So that's
Come
fun.
or
Yeah. So we wake up tomorrow in a very different world or the same world. Who knows?
yeah, let's
Yeah.
see.
I don't know. We're in Europe anyway, so really we shouldn't care too much about this. But unfortunately, it consumes us.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
tends to become that way.
I know. I need to be in residency with Corona, fending off Corona on the sides.
Yeah.
I have to say one thing on the canes. I noticed. I think I sent it to you on a comment, but like the canes look like a fucking roller coaster you have there. They look
Ah, you mean
super
like
bendy.
it wobbled a
Yeah.
lot, yeah? Yeah, the thing is that like for the show, we have several different lengths and different thicknesses. So I was on one of the longer pairs there. Those pairs are mainly for some of the lighter girls. There are some pairs that are even longer than the ones like basically what Emmett is referring to. Like I put on Instagram, just I was balancing on a cane and it's rather wobbly. But there are some that are even longer, and I think it'll be complete wobble fest on those if I go on them. But like the girls that are working on or primarily working on those canes, they're probably 20 kilos lighter than me, if not like around. So it's going to be a lot neater and nicer for them to be working on them. So the ones
Yeah.
I'm mainly on is slightly thicker or shorter.
Ah, cool, cool. Yeah, I just seen it as like, you're perfectly stable on it, but like the amount of movement on that cane compared to any other set of canes,
Mm.
I was just like, whoa, okay, we're going somewhere with this.
Yeah, like it's also like I'm not so comfortable, or like uh, I can of course balance just fine on those canes, but I'm not so comfortable because there are several moments where you don't feel your balance so much, and you just let the cane do it, and I don't really enjoy that sensation. Certain things are just fine to do on them, but like any high positions such as legs together, as I was doing there, it just like uh, sometimes it feels like you stay, but you just don't know why. And certainly not a fan of that feeling. So I like them a
Yeah.
bit more sturdy.
Yeah, that's kind of that point I was talking about, like noise cancelling. There should be some kind of optimum amount of noise cancelling in a set of canes
Yeah.
where I still feel in control. But yeah, it's kind of interesting just to watch it because they were moving a lot,
Mm.
like compared to anything else. And it was
It's
like,
funny when you see Imogen on them,
yeah,
since she's very petite. So when she's on them, of course they move, but it just has like a completely different quality. Like it's far from as violent as when I am on them, and of course the yeah, more than 20 kilos of weight difference between us just make that happen. So it's yeah, the pair I was on was like I think that was basically the design that she likes, and the ones that she enjoyed to work on. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and Imogen is a mutant as well.
Total mutant.
Total mutant. I was
entire
showing
group
someone her
is-
stuff during the week. I was just going, look, she's a mutant.
Yeah, she does very interesting stuff, and all of us are trying
Yeah.
to do interesting and new stuff now on the show. I think basically this week is when we kind of, the plan is to really finish the direction of the show and kind of take them, because we've had the conceptual framework sort of clear, but like now it's really kind of properly clarifying, and we're becoming able to without really creating a narrative, we're finding kind of how to say, the lens with which we want to present the material, meaning that
Yeah.
like we're like a lot of the physical material is there, but like how are we presenting it? How are we basically creating relationships and situations and kind of things happening on stage, rather than just like a bunch of, because like this type of show could very easily just become a bunch of pretty movement sequences and balancing skills, whereas we want to of course do that, but to be able to create like tension and intention as well on stage due to like various situations occurring. And like of course we're working a lot with these organic metaphors and growth and decay and like forests and organisms and so on, but to be able to create situations and like things happening within this framework is like basically what we're looking at, kind of digging deep into now with the material we have.
Nice.
So
nice. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to when the premiere, if it happens in Feb. We're definitely going to try and make the trip. I think maybe we should have a Handstandcast official fan club turn up.
Oh yeah, just hoping it like the premiere will actually happen. If it doesn't happen there, I mean we'll premiere somewhere else. But I'm essentially taking everything for granted as being cancelled, and if it doesn't cancel, I'm like, oh shit, whoa, this is really cool. I didn't expect this to happen. So it's kind of just low expectations to brace myself, and then suddenly you're very pleasantly surprised.
Low expectations. Suddenly it's 4 days out from a show and you haven't got the shit together. I didn't think this was going to happen.
That can
right.
also happen.
Should probably get on with the episode.
Yes, indeed.
So we had a special request actually for this episode from one of our team to do a training at home or in your limited space environments due to the lockdown episode. So I suppose we're just going to talk a bit about everything you might want to think about, space, equipment. I want to say a bit about progress and stress in these kind of times. You know, we're still dealing with, societal collapse to a certain degree. And, we'll ramble around, I suppose. So the first thing, I suppose, is how do you make space to train? And I suppose this kind of is different for every single level of person we're dealing with. The space requirements for a beginner are going to be very different for the space requirements for Mikael. So it's kind of everything up in that, and it also depends on your size. I know, just slightly offhand, in my my home space, I can't do a straight handstand because I'll touch the ceiling with my toes. So I just have to work like tuck and straddle. It's just like, that's all I can do. So that's fine. I'll work on that. But it's a very kind of obvious one, or not an obvious one, but it's something we didn't think about it when we got the apartment. Can I do a handstand here? I was just assumed the gyms and all will be open or other stuff. And now it's like enforced indoor training. And I'm like, oops. I can do some of those great like 10-minute one arms though when I wedge myself against the ceiling.
Yeah.
And just, kind of put some ankle weights on my hands to keep them in position and just go for it.
Then that's our next program we're filming.
Yeah. Put extra weight in your hands so counterbalance. That's a great idea. So I suppose it's like, I suppose we should start with walls already for people who would still be using walls. It's kind of
it's I think that's the obvious starting point for such a thing, and just like making sure that, I think the primary concern probably is just like like asking the question, am I comfortable getting up and am I comfortable getting down? And I think as soon as you start, if you are in a situation or a space where you doubt whether or not you're capable of getting up and down safely every time, then that is an indicator that it is a concern that you should perhaps have. Whereas like soon as you got the confidence needed and like the skill needed for those things, like you just like it becomes a given. You can see, okay, can I do these kind of things here? No, I can't. And can I do this? Yes, I can. And it doesn't become like, oh, I'm uncertain. But of course, like you need to have the amount of space so that if you're kicking into your handstand from the wall, you're not going to kick down the vase or like similar things. Like I think the worst thing I ever did like that was years ago when I was a student in uni, and I was doing hands, like I was in my tiny little like student dorm room, and I was gonna kick into handstand. Like basically the room had a desk, it had a bed, and it had like a tiny table with a TV on top. We're talking like early 2000s TV, one of those thick chunky boys, and like it was heavy. And I remember it was particularly heavy because I'd carried it. I'd bought it like from some fucker, and I'd carried it home, and I didn't use any public transport, and it was miserable. But anyway, I kick into handstand, and I just like I swing the legs up full force, but casually, right? Like nothing particular, and I slam my heel into that table, like underneath it, the one the TV's on. I remember like a massive bang. The TV kind of jumped, and I got a big cut in my heel, like putting on shoes and off shoes for several days, which is super miserable. It was so painful. So just make sure you're not kicking into things, because like it's when you're kicking to handstand, it's a full body movement. It's like a fully committed, all of your body weight moving in space. So it's so much more painful than if you're just doing like smacking your foot into something. I feel that kind of feeling of kicking into things in handstand is very similar to, I'm sure everyone has done this kind of thing where like your head is like half an inch from a door or a cupboard or a wall or something, and you turn your head and it feels as if like you're banging your head with full force on purpose, as if you're just like slamming your head into the wall, and all you're doing is you're moving your head 2 centimeters, but because your intention was to move your head far further than that surface, it just feels like you're basically like getting shot with a Death Star beam in your head. It's ridiculous. So yeah, have enough space. Don't kick TVs, don't kick things. It's not great for you, not great for things.
It's definitely one of those, like, I think it's kind of, we always got to think of what we're doing in all our handstand training. As we have an entry point to the skill, like how are we getting into the skill? We have the skill, what we intend to perform. Then we have the exit point. And the exit point is what I think fucks a lot of beginners up as well, because they can't judge their capacity, or it fucks it up. I got an interesting one that fucked me up one time. But yeah. So it's like this kind of idea of like, okay, I want to get in, don't kick anything. Watch out for your animals and children. I can remember one of my clients like booted her cat with that kick up technique, like hard. The poor cat, it fucking flew. I need to see if I can find that video again. It was fucking hilarious. Anyway,
there is also a video of a guy doing an air flare, and the cat attacks him mid-air flare. The cat gets slapped by the arm. It flies off camera, and it lands on the camera. I thought it was fake for ages, but this was like shot back in like the early 2000s with a shit camera, and you can actually see the paws of the cat coming into the camera before it gets black. It must be real, or I hope it's really fucking great. If you search air flare cat on YouTube, you'll find it.
There was that breakdance baby one as well. Watch out for your children, toddlers in general.
Oh shit, yeah, the guy.
Do you remember that one?
Oh my god, he gets the shit kicked out of him. Jesus, that's so bad.
That was one of the very first viral videos. You remember it when it's just like, oh, it was just bad. Yeah, so
doesn't he do like back handsprings or something and just like?
No, I think he was doing either air flare or he was doing like a windmill to 90, something like that. Something with the legs flying out to the side. Maybe not an air flare, but it definitely like.
Yeah, and he just kicks him and he flies. That kid flies. Yeah. Oof.
I know, it's good, like illustration what you're talking about. Like you intended to swing your legs so you could generate enough momentum to spin around, but unfortunately that momentum got transferred into a child and the child flew.
Yeah. Like definitely not recommended.
Yeah, so, watch out for your animals. And, send us your funny animal videos when they go wrong. We've got some great ones lately. And thank you, everyone who's been sending them in. That cat flip as well was awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so this is the other thing you want to consider is your exit. Like, I can remember one of my clients was doing handstands. I think she was doing them between like a wardrobe and a chest of drawers or something like this. And then it was like, she had enough space for herself to walk in. She's doing chest to wall holds. But then she didn't really consider that, like, if she pushed it to failure, she'd have to do a cartwheel out, which she was capable of. She was perfectly fine. It was conditioning at the end of the workout. It wasn't even learning the handstand. But alas, she couldn't cartwheel out. And alas, she had to kind of like do a face roll plant out, but couldn't because the bed was in the way as well. So it was kind of some weird collapsing face, kind of dodging, shin scraping adventure. So it's this kind of thing of like, have an entry plan and have an exit plan.
Or else you might end up on like the Instagram page Not So Acrobats. Shout outs to Kevin that runs it. It is by far the best acrobat fail compilation place you'll ever find, so make sure to check it out.
Yeah, that's one of those pages I can't watch. I just I hate things that are too close to home when I'm watching people get wrecked. I'm just like, oh, teeterboard again, off.
Yeah. One of my favorites there is a guy that's going to do a backflip, but he doesn't jump. Like, he literally does, like, his rotation is pretty good. Like, the rotational momentum he creates to go around is pretty good, but he doesn't jump. So he just flies backwards around and just eats it, like, super hard. But it's softish floor, so he doesn't get that direct. But on topic again, make sure that, like, you have a safe way of getting down, because, like, the up is easy to or getting up into a thing is kind of easy to underestimate in terms of what you can kick or what can happen, whereas of course it's kind of more obvious that when you're upside down and you have to come back down, that can be an issue, particularly if you're working with limited space. So the obvious number one thing to do is try to find a good space. So if you are somewhere where it's warm enough and you have a garden or something like that, like grab a plank, which, like, anyway, a handstand board is one of the best things you can get. Just something to balance on and put it by a wall outside or something. Or if you have to do it at home, like basically somewhere where, there's just enough space around you so that whatever method of getting up and down you are, just that instinctively is the easiest for you, that is always possible to do.
Yeah, it's definitely Jesus, I just remember one time, so many years ago, when I was learning one arm, someone told me the technique for learning one arm by yourself when you haven't got a spotter was to position your handstand at the corner of a room, and then you flag down to the side so you can feel the wall, and then flag back up, and kind of, so you're not being supported by the wall, but you can touch it when you need to. I don't recommend it. It was terrible, but I tried it. But someone in my house decided to come into my room while I was practicing this technique, and I was using the corner where the door was. And as you can imagine, someone bursting in, the door fucking took me out of it good and proper.
Oh, rip.
Yeah. It was also just completely unexpected as well. It's just like, as I was going back to the wall, back to the corner, not like chest to corner, it was just like a big slap on the ass from the door.
Yeah.
And then collapse while on like 4-finger support or something.
Dead finished.
Yeah, fuck that shit. Yeah, so make sure your housemates know what you're up to if you have housemates or children or partner or anyone, and know not to fucking disturb you.
I think another like interesting thing to consider, I guess particularly if you're suddenly confined and you can't do your regular practice or so on, is and let us say that you're even at the level where like you're really stoked and interested in training the handstand, but suddenly like your ability to do so is significantly compromised by whatever is going on. And like there are other like, or what I would suggest in those, like let's say for example, if you live in a very small space, you can't do much, and like there's certainly no space for handstands, like you can definitely rethink things to work on your hands, such as practicing your tuck planche, or like working on your L sit, or like, let us say for someone who is on a higher level of development, like let's say they work on, for example, press walks a whole lot, if that is all they have space for, and so on, so that you can get things done as well by just simply focusing on things where like there is no risk of falling, and that you don't actually need to consider the space around you to as large of a degree at all.
Yeah, I suppose on that note, if we're looking for kind of safer things as well, it's one of these things that you can work on. You're working on the handstand, but maybe there's like whole families of arm balances, as we call them, or low balances, where you're kind of doing supported stuff like breakdance freezes, crow, crane, croc. If you haven't got handstand space, now's the time to start learning them, because they are transferable and they are good to learn.
Yeah, for sure. And it's all of those things, since they're very low to the ground, like there's much less risk of any type of falling over and so on. And I mean, particularly nowadays, where if you're stuck at home a lot, you'll likely have less interesting things to do than you might have had before. So these kind of things can be like small side projects or so on that can be just good to spend some time on. And like, I think also for more advanced people, I certainly find for myself, like during these times, that there's loads of things that I don't get to practice so much, since like smaller space. I might not have the access to the equipment I want, or stuff like that. And I think just what I've been doing is basically just trying to find at least a couple of things that I have been able to work on. Like, I've also struggled with a shoulder injury during the same time, so I just literally just had to limit the things to work on and be like, okay, well, like, one doesn't need to always work on everything, and like, there will be a time after whatever limitation you might be in, whether or not it's coronavirus, or like you're on vacation with your family and there's going to be no way to practice, and getting too stuck in like, I must do my practice as I've always done it, or else I'm a bad person. I think that is also something to really watch out for, because I think with hand balancing, there are several things, as we've talked about before, that tends to lead people to be rather obsessive about their practice.
Yeah, it's definitely it's one of these things that's like, maybe you can't handstand, but maybe you could start training your flexibility like you always say you should do.
Yep.
Not pointing the finger at anyone, but
Hey, I've been doing back bridges lately, or something that kind of resembles back bridges at least.
I was pointing at our audience, not you, but So this kind of leads into one thing that I haven't been struggling with. A lot of my clients and students have been struggling with this lately, is there is this whole global systemic whatever going on, bullshit in the States. There's the fucking virus, there's work-related stress because maybe they're not getting enough hours, or uncertainty, and uncertainty is a big ass stressor. And then you get all the Twitterati, I will call them, the woke, or not even the woke, the productive crew, who are like, lockdown, make it the best lockdown ever, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, in some ways, there's too much pressure being put on people to be 100% operative, and it's causing a mass stress, particularly between my people who are, how do I put them? Maybe the more type A personality. I hate these personality qualifications, but this kind of type of, like, the person who's always ultra productive, always got their shit together, always in control, and then suddenly there's outside forces which aren't in their control, and they try to reestablish control by doing all these things, and then suddenly it's just, I don't want to go too much into people's thing, but a lot of people are just having a hard time, and it's like, be trying to force yourself to be productive in a time when you should go, fuck it, lockdowns and other stuff, what's going on, the temporary, shit will reestablish some kind of normality pattern. But forcing yourself when you're just like, you have a limited amount of resources, and the resources you spend mentally are ones that would have been spent fixing yourself physically. So I've been dealing with a lot of my clients who are very physically capable. Up until this point, I've had no problem. Suddenly, they're developing problems. They're developing joint problems and overtraining issues, which would not be an issue, even because I've like struck people's volume down massively as well at the moment. And they're still just like getting issues. Nothing bad, nothing undealable with, but it's like, but then when I talk to them and, you know, go sort of coaching with me is quite a holistic thing, I'd say. When I'll talk to people and find out what's going on in their life, and it's just like slowly you get the stories. It's like, oh, I'm very concerned, I'm very worried. Worried eats our resource. We don't have resources. So putting an onus like, I must get better, I must improve. You will improve in the long term, but maybe now is the time to say, I must maintain. I must just do a little, and just accept that's perfectly fine. Or, you know, also say to yourself, give yourself permission to just go like, I'm just not going to do anything. And I think that would be very healthy. And, you know, it's even if it's just like, you know, have some sessions, have your program as you lay it out, or program you're following. Maybe just do half of it and just go, you know, this is it. And I give myself, or Emmet has now given me permission. No, you're giving yourself, empower yourself to make the choice to say, I don't have the resources to progress now. And it's perfectly cool. Like the people who will make progress and people who can thrive in this, you know, I'm actually having a great time myself in lockdown in terms of training, because I can be consistent. And it's my one fatal flaw is consistency in training. That because I'm so busy, I travel so much. I haven't had to travel all year. It's amazing. I can like do shopping, and I know still be here by the end of the week to finish eating my shopping, and I can set, okay, I'll train this day of the week at this time, and I can do it. So for me, it's amazing. I'm making great progress, but that's just because my normal life is so in flux normally without this. So I'm getting the other side, but at the same time, you know, if it's not for you, you have to recognize that you are a different person.
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of, you know, there's two of my clients I'm thinking of, they're having issues, family and other stuff. And it's like, the kind of point is like, you know, I'm normally so strong, I'm normally this. And it's like, well, you probably are. Like one of them in particular has a very stressful job, and the other one's family members. And it's like, you know, you are strong. Like you've gotten to this point in your life without any real big issues. And then suddenly there's a whole global systemic kind of meltdown happening. And that's what it took to break you, or I'm not going to say break, I'm not going to say they're broken, but, you know, cause you to have some kind of thing. So, you know, you can recognize that you are strong, but it's an outside context problem that no one has context for in our generation.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's actually a very, very important point, and like I thought a lot about that during this time as well, like both in relation to my own. I mean, I guess most people during this time has had too much time either alone or kind of in kind of confining circumstances compared to what they're used to. And I mean, all these things are relative on average. Like, I mean, like I live in fucking Scandinavia, where it's like, I mean, like these consequences of the coronavirus has been like a lot less here than so many places. Yet you feel that kind of the change from the normal is something that you feel in some way. And like for me, I've sat alone so much since March, and like it's just not good for your mental health. Like I've just been sitting way too much just to myself, and like just, I mean, I can't at all say that I've like been depressed to any significant degree, but like when I look at my thought patterns, like things go pretty dark, just in terms, like I'm very much of an existentialist, and like I very easily fly into all these kind of meaning of life things, and I've always done that. But like all that stuff just turns also just like, it just gets really bleak when you just sit there on your own. Like even like this beautiful project that I'm like just talked about in the beginning of the cast, like haven't seen the guys for months, and just you sit there week in and week out and train a bit and just trying to keep my stuff going, play some video games, speak to people online, and just like just lose kind of the drive and the energy to like last week I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna work again with the group. I'm like, ugh, I wonder if we're able to make anything nice. And back in my head I know, yes, when I meet these people I'm going to feel completely different, but in the moment you're just down, and
yeah,
that's okay. Like like I haven't had that such hard time with telling myself that it's okay. But I've just seen that, like, okay, shit, I just need to accept this feeling of not feeling so great right now. And when it comes to my own physical practice too, like my Achilles heel is the opposite of Emmet's. Like mine is consistency. On the other end of the spectrum, I'm way too consistent. I train too much, and I'm like, now at this point, I'm very acclimatized to having a very high, both high level and high frequency of my practice. And suddenly, like, these things are confined. It's harder to get it done. Like, also have had like physical issues, like shoulder and all that stuff, and like you try to push through it too hard, and kind of get setbacks of rehab and all that kind of crap that happens. And just realizing that, like, and it's actually been a nice learning experience since about April, because like I was rehabbing, and like I kind of hit the peak rehab in April, and I was like, okay, shit, I'm a killer again. And I hit it just a bit too hard, and bam, I was back at the same spot like during summer. And it's kind of like, ugh, okay. And then you're walking around trudging with everything that's going on, and in the end, just like accepting that, hey, like now is one of those periods where I can't, and I perhaps shouldn't even strive for trying to be at peak level. Whereas for me, like, due to the years that I've been as a performer, and like my high consistency of practice, and my very high, or like being lucky enough to not being particularly injured during any point, which will like only been injured once in my life, that actually stopped me from practicing for a significant amount of time. The rest, it's kind of been like smaller injuries like that I could work around. Like, it's just made it so that it's so habitual, and it's so like kind of identity, and it's so much like, where's my community? Suddenly, like, bam, everything's gone. And like just accepting that, like, fuck, it sucks. And like going there, yay, I'm gonna be so productive, I'm just gonna deny everything, and I'm gonna train. And like for the first couple of months, like I felt pretty good. It's like, yeah, I'm just gonna do my thing and train and la 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 la. But then, like, now it's just, yeah, I'm gonna do a bit, and then eventually I'm going to do more. And the last week has felt kind of like a bit like, hey, yeah, I feel a bit inspired to do a bit more, but I'm not gonna try to force it into kind of the higher echelons of achievement, because like, one, like, why would I do that right now? Like I'm
for the gram.
But like I'm not in kind of the community or situation that makes me happy to partake in the activities that bring me there. And I think that this is an important thing just to consider in terms of that. And like you said, stressors are stressors. Like, you might feel unaffected on one point, or like in one aspect, but it might impact you in another, and this will be different for different people. So
yeah, definitely.
I think it's incredibly important to perhaps not chase progress in all phases of, or all times in one's life, like regardless of if that is coronavirus, or if it's something else taking up your time, or your physical or mental or emotional energy. Like, whenever there's going to be like something that's rough, it might impact you, and that's like finding acceptance for that, I think, is just definitely key.
Yeah, I think it's definitely I think we touched on it. We're getting super deep. Deep.
Great.
But I think it's important to be said. Yeah. I'd actually like to go on. I was going to do this segment towards the end, but I think actually now is a good time to put it in. So it's one of these things, if you're training by yourself and if you're finding it kind of, I don't know, uninspiring, maybe like, say, put it from my own personal experience. Like, I normally train in just normal gyms. I don't really go to circus gyms. So there's normally not any around. And like, say I used to train in a gym in Raw in Dublin that you've probably seen in some of my videos. It's closed now, but I'd have my training crew who were powerlifters, bodybuilders, just doing their own thing. But they're people I knew. I'd go along, do my training, do whatever the fuck I was fucking around with at the time. And it would be cool because I know I'd see the same people there every single day or other stuff. So it's kind of like a social club as much as anything else. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the best sort of training times I've had. or that kind of thing, and then it just doesn't exist. And it's kind of like it can be hard to motivate or to have people to train. So I was going to just talk a bit about, I suppose, Zoom classes or video call classes and other stuff. So there's slight ulterior motive to this as well, which I'll talk about as well. Full disclaimer. But one of the things is like on a Zoom class, either a one-to-one or even a group class. I know a lot of people are doing group classes now. You can build up a bit of a social community this way and get a bit of a social outlet with people who want to do your activity. You could either organize this like a train along with your friends. Like I know some people who just like, they'll just put on the Zoom on their television with their friend and just do their training at the same time and chat while they're doing it. This is a good outlet. Now, my ulterior motive and my slight pitch here is there's a lot of people, a lot of coaches in the handstand community, and hand balancers who are kind of a bit down on the luck at the moment. Coaching in person just isn't happening in a lot of places and other stuff. And a lot of them are probably running classes or would be available for classes. So if there's anyone like, and some of them mightn't have thought this is an idea. So if there's anyone who you might have wanted to coach with or do training with over the years, now could be a good time to actually go, well, I can't get to this person's workshop, but I could see if they're running a class or see if I could run something. I'm not going to name anyone in particular, but there is a lot of people doing this and it is a good opportunity. Like I know, my girlfriend Elisa, who's the producer here, she is she's been doing classes with like coaches she's wanted to train with over the years, like on Zoom, just all over the place, or not so much anymore. The first lockdown, like a lot of them was just like, wouldn't be a possibility normally. So it's kind of, this possibility exists to either find, a class or find a thing or make your own little social video bubble. And it's kind of, these are cool things to do, I suppose. And just kind of, we have this technology, you don't have to be, I like these kind of Zoom train times when you're just like, okay, I'll just put on my thing, I'll do my thing, and I'll chat with the person in between my sets. It can be just that simple, but it can just also give you a bit of motivation or a bit of consistency or a bit of something.
Yeah, I know there's some people that like they just would kind of just do these like literal hangouts with their friends. It's like just let's chit chat while you practice, just to have something social going on while you get to do the thing that you usually would perhaps do with someone. And there's so many people doing classes out there now, and of course a lot of these people are artists that basically got mega fucked by coronavirus and are losing like their jobs left and right and up and down, and there is basically no end in sight for them at this point in time. So I mean, like if you are looking to do classes with people, look them up and like find people that and I've seen a lot of people, if you like, there's a lot of professional hand balancers out there right now that are offering such classes, and like, why not? I mean, there's tons of knowledge out there, and you'll certainly get something out of it, and they'll then benefit from that as well. So they definitely shout out to everyone that's basically just trying to keep their heads above water within that sector now, because it's bleak.
Yeah, it's also, it could be a bit of a golden era as well. If you, I don't know, like there's a lot of artists who are doing the thing, and if you like someone's style, now's a chance to go like, hi, teach me some of the artistic side of hand balance as well, which is kind of interesting thing to work on, which hopefully won't be too technical and won't be pushing your technical abilities too far into the danger recovery zone. So it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, that'll actually be an interesting challenge for artists too. Like, how do you create? I mean, that gets me thinking. Like, someone contacts me regarding, okay, they want to develop some sort of artistic practice, and they want some online help with that. Like, what would I do? Like, what kind of tasks would I give them? What sort of time frames? All these kind of things, like, gets me kind of thinking. It's definitely interesting and possible things. And I think that this is one of the kind of good takeaways from all of this garbage, is that like there will, like, such things such as that isn't necessarily thought of without this kind of limitation. And of course, it's preferable with community and real life meetings. But in an eventual aftermath of this, like, you might just have access to both of them. So, and you might have developed new tools in terms of teaching, and like the few online classes, or like for the short period that I've been doing those, like just one-on-ones and stuff, like it's also been interesting. Okay, how do you structure a format that that conveys something in that period of time? Because I've not been used to doing that unless I'm there in person, and it's of course a challenging thing to teach online, but it's certainly possible, and it does require a lot of reflection for the teacher to be able to, without hands-on, without being present, without being able to show so much and so on, be able to bring across like condense the concepts and bring them across.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I don't really do one-to-ones. I'll only do them for like people I already know. But even then, it's like, if you're doing online training with someone, you go, okay, we're going to be working together for 3, 4, 5 months. Then you get this chance to develop this training dialogue where you're like, okay, let's figure out how we work together. Whereas if you're doing a kind of one-to-one class, it's very like in person, because you can just kind of run through things. If it's not working, you can spot someone into it.
Yeah.
But obviously on video, it's like, you know, how do you get it across? It's always an interesting thing. I think it's an interesting, you know, it's a communication challenge for both people as well. You know, because we have the video, but you don't get the full picture on video. You get a lot of it, but then you have to also talk to the person. You, who are the person doing the class, have to talk to the person, kind of translate your experience to something they can understand, and then they have to translate like their solution to your experience to a different format that you can then try and digest and format. So it's kind of, it's definitely an interesting one as well. We kind of got slightly off the order I wanted to do things in.
Yeah, totally. It all spazzed out, but
yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
Good anyway.
One thing, I wanted to go all the way back to is equipment. Actually, what sort of equipment do you need to train at home? Now, this is kind of one of those, like, you know, it's a bit of the joke, really, when, like, in the fitness industry, if I remember my figures right, running is the biggest gear selling kind of side of the fitness industry. One has the biggest turnover and the biggest kind of gross profits.
That's
is running equipment. Whereas you think, running equipment, you know, what do you need? Oh, well,
a couple of feet.
You need to run. No, I need the pants and the headband and the bottle with that handle kind of thing and all these kind of things. But then I suppose handstands is like
strap and the thing.
And iPhone strap and Android strap as well, let's face it. But yeah, so then I'm about to do the exact same with handstands, where it's like, handstands, well, it's the thing where you don't even need to wear shoes to do. Yet we're going to recommend you some equipment to use for your handstands. So first and foremost, you need a floor or a consistent surface. So the handstand plank is your friend. I think we talked about this one in the past one, but just any kind of flat piece of wood that is kind of unfinished is nice for this.
Get yourself a piece of ply and you're done. Like, don't let anyone sell you a plank, because it is a plank. Like, I literally took some shit that was a shelf. Like, I've actually done that several times. Once I climbed into a big skip outside of the circus school I worked in Copenhagen and found 2 pieces of wood, and voila, it was glorious. Until I fucking lost them somewhere.
You lost your plank. I have to say, like, I had my IKEA shelf plank for quite some time. It was an IKEA shelf that was no longer on the wall, and that worked great. I don't even think they actually make a shelf this type anymore. It was just like plywood with no finish. But I think all the IKEA shelves nowadays are kind of like that hollow board stuff they use. So Sweden has let me down yet again.
Yeah, but like, I think other pieces of equipment, or like, I mean, any type of like, if we're just speaking, of course, handstands is one thing, but like in a broader sense, a lot of just like very basic calisthenics and conditioning things are rather available to do in a home space. If you have like in one of those chin-up bars, you can put in the door.
Yeah, door frame chin-up bar.
Some people can like, if you have if you have the possibility to drill in the roof or in the ceiling, you can put up a couple of rings on some bolts, for example, or like parallettes. But you don't need a lot. Like, I mean, I've done like planche push-up work on chairs a million times. Like it's very simple to use, like easy, and like stuff you already have, as long as it's sturdy. Make sure things aren't going to break if you support your weight on it. That's just in general not a very good idea. But there's just tons of things that you can use in terms of setting up pretty decent and pretty effective practice with just rather basic stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's just one of the, I suppose, elastics as well. You can't go wrong with elastics and ab wheels, put it that way.
Yeah, ab wheel is underestimated.
Yeah. Did I show you my ab wheel when you were here?
No.
Oh
Do you
my
have
God,
special
I need to
ab
show you,
wheels?
it's my most ghetto piece of equipment I've ever made. It's amazing. So I don't know where I got them, but I had basically I got some wheels, but like heavy duty, like lawnmower wheels, like not shit ones.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like whatever. They could probably go on a golf cart or some shit like this. I got some slotted, that threaded rod. The whole rod is kind of like screw and it kind of good shape, but it wrecks your hand so much. But then I figured out my fat grips. If people know what fat grips are, you put on a barbell to make it fatter. You can put the rod through it, so then you have fat grip, and it's got two wheels on either side, and so you have one on each hand, and you have like the
That's
ultimate
what
ab wheel.
those wheels were. They were
Yeah.
in your box, weren't they? Now it makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, it looked awful.
Then it's all like bound together with a bit of duct tape. But I've had them about 15 years. They're
Glorious.
amazing. They're like, yeah. I've made a lot of equipment over the years, and that is definitely some of the one that has survived. Good quality wheels. Yeah, so like these kind of things for like bands in particular, just, I'm not going to even talk about exercise. You can find enough of them on YouTube. But in terms of just having something to do stuff with, it can alleviate the boredom. You can even train legs with them if you're so inclined. Squats, good morning, stuff like this. I said I wasn't going to say exercises, but here I am saying exercises. Parallettes or two chairs are always useful. Handstand plank, a set of canes or a set of blocks as well.
Yeah.
Always useful.
Canes are like usually a bit more pain in the ass inside. I've set up my canes in here, but I was doing jump switches in here on my small cane once, and like I felt my foot just brush the ceiling as I switched, and after that I just didn't anymore. Because like, imagine me kicking kicking the roof as I switch and just send myself shooting down into oblivion. No thanks.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's like, it just depends on your situation and what your weather is as well. But
Yeah.
Christmas is coming. A set of canes would always be good. It's kind of I suppose. What other equipment do we use for handstands?
Guess that's mainly it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
in general. I think like the good thing is that you will always be well off on the floor, regardless of who you are, since like it'll give you very honest feedback, and it'll be kind of the primary kind of surface, which will be the test of your metal. So yeah, I think in on average for most people, just like the floor and a wall will go you a very long way, even up until like if you're working on early one arm prep or even like mid to late one arm prep, like a wall can be very useful for various setups. So just like making sure that you do have the space for that, or if you don't, then finding somewhere that you can is certainly useful.
Oh yeah, speaking of the flags and learning one arm and stuff, I got a great tip what I used to do when I was learning and doing wall flags. So if your bed is kind of separated from the wall on either side, what you do is, if you haven't got space, you're just going to flag or half diamond flag. So you come up the bed, you get your bedside table out from either side of the bed, and then the wall above the bed is generally pretty clear for a lot of people. And then you can set up on your flag, and then you can bend down, touch the bed, come back up. Bend down, touch the bed, come back up. And then you walk around to the other side of the bed, and then you do your flag on the other side. People are picturing this.
Oh yeah, that reminds me of something I was doing in a hotel room once. I was like lying in bed, like on my computer, and I would just lean to the side, so I would kind of, like my hands would fall down to the floor, and then I would kind of just like lift into handstand, do a set, and just like belly flop onto my stomach, roll over, and do more computer. It was actually a pretty glorious setup.
It's one of those spaces I found. If you haven't got a lot of wall space in your apartment or your house, wherever, the bed space, the air space above the bed is generally pretty good. And that's a good space. And then you end up with a weird half circle above your bed where people are like, "Oh, nice decoration." You're like, "Yeah, I did it myself."
How about flexibility training then, Emmet? Like, I mean, I know a lot of it, or like there are loads of exercises with like all the weights and like the Jeffersons and all that kind of stuff that people tend to use in gyms. Like, is there anything like specific in terms of like home training that's...
So, this is the thing. What people would normally say floor sliders. Floor sliders are great, but what I think is actually a better idea to have is the idea of having something to control the friction of the floor surface. So getting intimate with whatever floors you have and going, oh, I have wooden floors. They're really slidey if I have socks on, but where if my feet are the right amount of sweatiness, I get a bit of grip and a bit of slide. And if I wear a pair of shoes, I just don't slide at all. Or I have certain shoes that slide but controllable. So this kind of thing, if you're working ISO splits or kind of slides into splits or things like that, you have a way of controlling the intensity. This would be the big kind of thing. The other thing I really like, everyone's going to hate me when I suggest this, is adjustable ankle weights. Now, they can be a bit pricey. I think I paid about 50, 60 quid for mine, so not too expensive. But you've used my ones where you take out
the Omega ones. Yeah, they're so good. Like basically like Emmet's fucking ankle weights. They have like these tiny little like nuclear fuel rods that you put into them. So it's basically,
I think they're like 500 grams or something. So they go up to 10 kilos, and maybe you don't need to use 10 kilos, but like
you can adjust.
You're never really going to go wrong working kind of leg lifts and flies when you're moving legs apart with weight, and just kind of treating like a resistance exercise. Like, oh, I can't really progress, or I haven't got the equipment. You can progress, but working on all that stuff where you're lifting your leg to the front, to the side, to the back, with a set of ankle weights. Most people have the space to do this, even if you on the outward side, say you haven't got space in your apartment to do splits because the wall is too tight or it's a studio or something. That's fine. You can always lift your leg up if you can step forward. And just by playing with all these kind of angles and your leg weights and ankle weights and lifting them up, and 30, 40 second holds are pretty good here. Add weight once, you can do 3 or 4 sets of that. This will go a long way to helping your flexibility. In fact, it's the missing gap for a lot of people's flexibility is the ability to lift the leg. And it is what we need to do, and we'll work everything that you will need to do, and you will suffer because your quads will cramp, but it's definitely worth doing. It's definitely worth like very simple stuff. There's a lot of like decent, no equipment stretching. This is the kind of thing like equipment and stretching is kind of a new thing where people like using weight, where people just didn't use equipment before when to stretch and just do the positions, let the body weight do it. We can go all the way back to that as well. That is definitely something to do. Bands, it's kind of one of those things. It's a double edge. I find a lot of these band exercises very difficult to set up or difficult to get the right level of intensity, but you can definitely play with them and find stuff that's there that will help you. It's just kind of, you can never go on working a bridge if you have space for it as well. Mikael?
As I said, I've started to get back on twisting into bridges. Now my shoulders are actually kind of happy about it, so twisting in and out of kind of a jank bridge on both sides is fine. Which just, like, that hasn't been fine on my right arm for quite some time. Like, basically what I'm talking about is if you put your hands on the floor and you do kind of like bridge rotation. And I used to be really, really good at that, actually. As I was kind of my preferred entry method of getting into a bridge. My wrists absolutely hate like doing those kind of, like if you just push into a bridge from lying down on your back. But but yeah, like I'm always doing that like a few times during my warm ups now, and it's certainly going to be, or it feels very healthy for my shoulders to like to get to do that. And like speaking of this kind of period as well, with less access to gyms and all kinds of stuff, like I've also been a lot in my hometown up in the mountains and just been at my mom's place. Like my practice has become extremely one-sided and extremely I've done way too much of only the same stuff, and it's rather ridiculous. Like if I think back about like a year from now, there's loads of these very basic things that I was significantly better at doing than I was about a month ago, and I'm just like, hey, why is my body so stiff here and there in these various things? And then you think, okay, but yeah, I've only sat, walked around, done a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and a ton of fucking handstands is all I've done. I haven't had a
Yeah.
chin up bar, like I haven't done much else than just this very highly specialized practice of mine. And yeah, damn, it's certainly felt good to kind of identify that and starting to consciously do other things as well.
Yeah, that's what I kind of seen when you were in Dublin. It was like your SPP was too high compared to your GPP.
Yep.
Those specialized physical preparation was higher than his general physical preparation. For those of you who don't know what it does mean, and yeah, it's definitely something to consider. Other than that, I'd like to obviously in this time, I suppose we'll just wrap it up there unless
Yeah.
there's anything else to thing. Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to say, you know, if you're training at home and you want something to follow, we have our programs available at Handstand Factory, which enables us to do the podcast. Other than that, if you have any questions for our Q&A, please just, you know, shoot them over to us at Handstand Factory on Instagram, or either to me and Mikael ourselves on Instagram. We'll get to them. There's also a contact form on the website. You can send them in that way. And you can also, if you find our podcast on anchor.fm, you'll find it through the website. You can also send us voice note questions, and we will definitely use them. Other than that, please send us your animals as well. We'll definitely rate them. That's mainly for me. I run the Instagram account a lot of the time, or I'm in there a lot of the time, maybe not running it. That's the wrong thing to say. And yeah, other than that, I hope our rambling has been useful this week, and you know,
Yeah.
have a good lockdown if you're in lockdown, and if not, we'll see you in the future.
Indeed. Cheers.